So I'm beginning the session on ethics, and the CFA Institute gives the impression, well, when I say gives the impression, I'll clarify that what I mean by that in a second, but based on the weighting on level 1, level 2, level 3 with ethics and its presence at all three levels, gives the impression that it takes this quite seriously, which means that you should take this quite seriously for two reasons. Number one, it's the right thing to do. Let's just put that out there. And number two, it's going to be tough to get through all three levels by ignoring this section. It makes up such a big part of number one. I think the weighting is 15%. That you really, really want to crush this section because it's fairly easy and straightforward. You really want to crush a section. Now, here's the thing. Here's the problem that I have with ethics. You can teach ethics. Sure, you can. You can have courses and classes on ethics. Absolutely. But you cannot teach someone to be ethical. I think that's a disposition. You either have it or you don't. You're either willing to do it or you're not. And being ethical requires sacrifice. It is easy to be ethical when it doesn't cost you anything. That's easy to do. You can't judge people on their actions when there's nothing on the line. Everyone's a good person when there's nothing on the line. But the moment it costs you something, that's where we see the separation. There are people who are otherwise good people until it costs them something. Then they will not do the right thing. They will do the right thing for themselves. Now, when I say there are people, I should say it the other way around. The majority of people will do that. I've had 50 years on this planet. Believe me, that is the rule. The exception are those rare few. And when I say rare few, I'm talking maybe 10, 20%. Those rare few that are willing to sacrifice their own self-interest to do the right thing because they need to live with themselves. They're just disposed to behaving that way. So, I believe we can teach ethics. I do not believe we can teach ethical behavior. So, this whole stress on ethics, I think at all three levels, I don't know if it's really valuable. But anyways, there it is. You got to pay attention to this. And maybe you are an ethical, decent person, and you may simply just not be aware that, oh, I never knew that would be considered a problem. And okay, that's the value that this provides. But if you're predisposed towards being a highly self-interested person, regardless of your consequences on other people, for you, this will just be a memorization thing because you're not going to buy into any of this anyways. All right, so let's go. Reading number one, the first reading of this series, LOSA, keyword describe the structure of the CFA Institute Professional Conduct Program and the process for the enforcement of the Code of Standards. So let's just get this out of the way right off the top. All members and candidates. That means you. If you are scheduled to sit for an exam, you are a candidate. That means that you are binded by this code and the standard, the Code of Ethics and the Conduct and Practices Standards. You are bound by that right now, not later on, right now. All members and candidates, and from now on, I'm not going to write members and candidates out. I'll write M/C, little m/little c. For code and standards, I'm just going to write it as capital C, capital S, so I don't have to keep writing it out every time. All members and candidates are required to comply with the code and standards. And here's our professional conduct program within the CFA Institute, down here. The Board of Governors has oversight over the PCP, and they work in conjunction with something called a disciplinary review committee, which will come into play. I'll let you know where that comes into play, but understand that this is here. So when they come up with a conclusion on you, you can say, I don't agree with that. Then it would go to these guys. And the Disciplinary Review Committee is made up of volunteers, current CFA charter holders, that then review what's going on and decide, well, okay, did that make sense? And together they are responsible for the enforcement of the code and standards. We'll be clear, code and standards, these are two different things, but they work together. So, conduct inquiries, that means they look into your conduct. These inquiries may originate from members and candidates. Every year you have a self-disclosure on the annual professional conduct statement, and you've got to disclose things like civil litigation, criminal investigations. Are you the subject of a written complaint? This is all self-disclosure, and you must do that annually. Written complaints received by the professional conduct staff. So somebody can have a problem with you and go right past you rather than deal with you. Say, I'm not going to deal with this person. I'm not going to get anywhere. I'm going to end run them and go right to the CFA Institute and complain right to the professional conduct staff. So they can receive a written complaint about you. The CFA staff can hear about it. Just hear about it through media, regulatory notices, social media, whatever the case is. They can say, hey, I think that person's doing something wrong. That's not right. Exam proctors. Don't even try to cheat. Oh, I can't even tell you how bad that is. Don't even try to cheat. They are militant about this. You're only allowed certain things in. You got to have a valid passport on the way in. Your name's got to be on that list. You sit where they tell you to sit. You got a specific count. That's it. Don't even think that there's a way to do it because that's the end of the road. I mean, that's the end of the road, period. Even post-exam behavior. Online disclosure of confidential exam material, for example. Not everyone sits at the same time. So that's a no-no. So after we just finished discussing how they hear about you, and listen, in today's connected world, you leave footprints everywhere. I mean, this is not the summertime where you can jump out the back window, run across the back lawn, and leave no tracks. There is snow on the ground everywhere out there. No matter where you walk, you're leaving footprints. So it's a digital world. You're everywhere. Once an inquiry has been initiated, what happens then? Well, there's a request for a written explanation from the member or the candidate. Just because somebody complains doesn't mean they're right. They could be dead wrong and complain. Well, they still got to be looked into. So you get to tell your side of the story, and for a lot of cases, that may be enough. Interviews with the members or candidates, interviews with the complaining party, other relevant third parties, collecting documents and records. So there's a thorough investigation. They check the facts. They make sure that they got everything right, but they just don't believe a complaint. When a complaint comes in, they'll say, hey, look, this is what we heard. What's your side of it? And then they go from there. It may result in no action. Issue a cautionary letter. Hey, a big wag of the finger, furrowing of the brow. Or continue to disciplinary action. This is for some really bad stuff. Continue to disciplinary action. If you reject the result, so if you don't like the outcome, it goes to the DRC. This is the review committee we talked about earlier. So if it goes to disciplinary action, what type of disciplinary actions are there? Public censure, suspension of membership. That's just suspension now. Suspension of membership and use of the CFA designation. If it's even worse than that, a total revocation of the CFA charter holder. And candidates these are for members now because they can't suspend a membership if you're not a member yet, if you're just a candidate, right? Candidates, suspension or prohibition from further participation. This one will kill you. You can sort of kiss that job career goodbye and move on to something else, especially if you need that designation. So it's just too big of a risk to take. Adoption of the code and standards apply to all members and candidates. Even firms are encouraged to adopt. They don't have to. Even non-members are encouraged to adopt. You don't have to be a CFA charter holder. You don't even have to be a candidate. You can look at it and say, you know what? That makes sense. I'm just going to adopt their code and standards. You can do that. They'll allow that to happen. If you do, anyone who does can post this so-and-so, whatever your name is, claims compliance with the CFA Institute Code of Ethics and Standards of Professional Conduct. This claim has not been verified by CFA Institute. So you can say that you claim compliance with it, but you can't say that, yeah, you know what, and they're on board with me on this. It just says it's not been verified by CFA Institute, but I do. I'm in compliance with them. So the code and the standards apply to individual investment professionals. At the level of the firm, the CFA Institute has developed something called the Asset Manager Code of Professional Conduct, and this is drafted especially for firms. Why ethics matters. I think we all know why ethics matters, because we want to be treated in a certain way, and if we want to be treated in a certain way, we want other people to be ethical. Well, guess what? They want the same thing from us, right? So that's why it matters. It is a set of moral principles. Notice it's not legal now. That's what makes ethics so hard to put into practice. Legal stuff, there's a real penalty after. But morality and ethics, many people are willing to cross that line. A set of moral principles or rules of conduct that provide guidance for our behavior when it affects others. When it affects others. And of course, that's the ethics tries to balance your self-interest versus the direct and indirect consequences to others. Protects the integrity of the members, protects the integrity of firms, of the profession, of the markets. So ethics, I don't think that we can come to the conclusion that, you know what, it doesn't matter. It does matter. The problem is, how do you get everybody to act that way when they're not predisposed to act that way to begin with? The other problem with ethics is it's a competitive marketplace you're entering, an extremely competitive marketplace where those at the bottom simply just get shown the door. Those at the top need an edge, and most of that edge comes from crossing that line. So if everyone that you're working with and in competition with is willing to cross the line and you're not, you're at a bit of a disadvantage. It's sorry to say that, and it's an unhappy statement, I think, but you're at a disadvantage if everyone around you is willing to cross that line and you're not. Just understand that. Moving on to LOSB, which is state the 6 components of the Code of Ethics and the 7 standards of professional conduct. All right, so Code of Ethics. We'll start with the 6 and then we'll move on to the 7. Act with integrity, competence, diligence, and respect in an ethical manner with the public, clients, both current and prospective, employers, employees, colleagues. So this is really simple. I think of number 1 as the golden rule. Do unto others, right, as you would have them do unto you. If you want to be treated with integrity and with respect and in an ethical manner, then you must lead with the type of behavior you expect those around you to show. You must lead with that. Number 2, place the integrity of the investment profession and the interests of clients above their own personal interests. In other words, their meaning your own, their own. This is meant to say that members and candidates will place the integrity of the investment profession above their own personal interests. Number 3, use reasonable care and exercise independent professional judgment when conducting investment analysis, making investment recommendations, taking investment actions. I like to think of this as be a good consumer of other people's research. Just because somebody says something or somebody writes something doesn't mean you say, you know what, I'm going to repeat that. That makes a lot of sense. Without actually looking into it, be skeptical. I'm always skeptical. Use reasonable care and exercise independent professional judgment when conducting investment analysis, making investment recommendations. So don't do that Kramer thing where you list off a stock that's buy in 10 seconds, throw a pig at the screen and hit a buzzer that screams. I mean, that is not exercising care. That's nowhere near reasonable care. So keep that in mind. Just because somebody says something doesn't mean you take it. That's what this is saying. Number 4, practice and encourage others to practice in a professional and ethical manner that will reflect credit on themselves and the profession. And I always think the best way to do this is not to preach. Preaching, nobody wants a preacher. If you want to encourage others to behave in a certain manner, you must lead quietly with that behavior. Never underestimate your impact on those around you. But if you're going to proclaim loudly, look how great I am, look at what I can do, look at all the things I can do, you should be more like me, no one's going to like you. And here in Canada, we have that problem with our Prime Minister right now. We have a narcissistic Prime Minister. who just is not getting on with the business of governing, but peacocking around. And that is not encouraging others to do a good job. It's just encouraging others to be more showboaty than he is, right? Practice and encourage others to practice in a professional and ethical manner. Number 5, promote the integrity and viability of the global capital markets for the ultimate benefit of society. That's kind of a vague one, isn't it? Promote the integrity and viability of the global capital markets. I liken this one to recycling. You should recycle. But you recycling when everyone else isn't going to make one bit of difference. Not one bit of difference. So it's one of those things where collectively everybody's individual actions can matter, but individually none matter whatsoever. So that's kind of a vague one. Number 6, maintain and improve professional competence. What does this mean? This means ongoing education. It never ends. Ongoing education. You thought, all I need is this university degree and I'm done. And somebody says, not without an MBA. And you say, well, I'll do a master's in finance and I'm done. And somebody says, not without a CFA. So you say, okay, I'll do my CFA and I'm done. You think you'll be done, right? No. Continuing education. Maintain and improve professional competence and strive to maintain and improve the competence of other investment professionals. Again, by your behavior, not by your preaching. So I'm going to start combining LOSC here for the state standards of professional conduct. And C says, explain the ethical responsibilities required by the code and standards, including the subsections of each standard. So I'm just going to list what the subsections are of each standard. And what I'm going to do when we get to the next reading 2 is the longest reading of all the readings you'll ever encounter. It's like 180 pages long. And it goes through each of the standards and each of the subsections, like 5, 6, 7 pages on each one. Because there's lots of good examples, and I encourage you to read those examples of situations that you can find yourself in where this application applies. So what I'm going to do, rather than when I go to reading 2, rather than do each learning objective A, B, C, I'm going to combine A, B, and C all together for each of these. So in other words, there'll be one video on this, on 1A, one video on 1B, one video on 1C, etc., etc. So that each one will be broken down into its own 5-10 minute video. That's it. It's easier to do than do a whole chapter. So I'm not going to get too much into C here. I'm just going to list what's coming up. So, standards of professional conduct. Number 1, professionalism, knowledge of the law, independence and objectivity, misrepresentation and misconduct. Let's see what each of those mean. Integrity of capital markets, material non-public information. Can you do anything about that? You should know pretty much right now. Probably not. Market manipulation. Well, that doesn't sound like a good thing either. Can we manipulate markets? No. Number 3, duties to clients. Loyalty, prudence, and care. Fair dealing. Suitability. Performance presentation. And preservation of confidentiality. Those all seem fairly straightforward, right? Duties to employers, loyalty. Now, if you're paying attention here, you might say, well, hang on a second. If I have a duty to my client of loyalty, and I have a duty to my employer of loyalty, would those not two come into conflict at some point in time? Aha, yes. In fact, there are quite a few instances where paying attention to one might put you in conflict with another one. So we'll see what happens when those things arise. Loyalty, additional compensation arrangements, responsibilities of supervisors. Number 5, investment analysis, recommendations, and actions. A, diligence and reasonable basis. B, communication with clients and prospective clients. And C, record retention. I'm going rather quickly through them because I'm really just listing them out in kind of a roadmap where we're going. Again, remember, each one will be a separate video. Conflicts of interest, disclosure of conflicts, priority of transactions, referral fees. Number 7, responsibilities as a CFA member or candidate. Conduct as a member or candidate in the CFA program, what's expected of you. And reference to CFA Institute in CFA designation or the CFA program. They have very specific rules about how you're supposed to use the letter CFA, very specific rules. So you're going to want to know that, especially candidates. You're going to want to know what you can and cannot say here. All right, so let's move on to the next reading, and we're going to do, as I said, each video that follows now will be one subsection at a time. There are 22 of them, so there'll be 22 videos that follow.